At a time when contaminated waterways and polluted air threaten too many of our communities, John H. Adams co-founded the Natural Resources Defense Council to encourage responsible stewardship of our natural resources. A staunch defender of the wonders of our planet, he served as executive director and later as president of the NRDC, challenging Americans to live up to our responsibilities to leave something better to our children with an urgency matched by few others. John Adams' decades-long commitment to safeguarding the earth has left our air purer, our water cleaner, and our planet healthier for generations to come. Dr. Maya Angelou. Out of a youth marked by pain and injustice, Dr. Maya Angelou rose with an unbending determination to fight for civil rights and inspire every one of us to recognize and embrace the possibility and potential we each hold. With her soaring poetry, towering prose, and mastery of a range of art forms, Dr. Angelou has spoken to the conscience of our nation. Her soul-stirring words have taught us how to reach across division and honor the beauty of our world. Warren E. Buffett. As a world-renowned investor and philanthropist, Warren E. Buffett's business acumen is matched only by his dedication to improving the lives of others. He is a co-founder of the Giving Pledge, an organization that encourages wealthy Americans to donate at least 50% of their wealth to philanthropic causes. Warren Buffett's example of generosity and compassion has shown us the path from his time as a decorated Navy pilot to his years in the White House as the 41st President of the United States, a profound commitment to serving others. As President, he upheld the American value of liberty during a time of renewal and promise. As a private citizen, he has united Americans in times of crisis, lending his tireless efforts to men and women whose lives have been upended by disaster. Over the arc of his life, President Bush has served our nation as a tremendous force for good, and we proudly salute him for his unwavering devotion to our country and our world. Bold and iconic, the work of Jasper Johns has left lasting impressions on countless Americans. With non-traditional materials and methods, he has explored Jasper Johns' innovative creations help shape the pop, minimal, and conceptual art movements, and the United States honors him for his profound influence on generations of artists. Gerda Weissman Klein.
All right, good afternoon to all of you. Ms. Lederer, please.
テレ東ビズ
テレ東ワールドポリティクス豊島新作です。今回はですね、前回に引き続きゲストをお迎えしてですね、ウクライナ戦争が将来的なリスクとしての台湾有事、いわゆる台湾戦争に何かインプリケーションを与えうるのかどうかについて伺っていきたいと思います。
But as this has now been highly publicized, it may have been secretly changed. It won't matter much, as the increased speed of communication means the Queen's death won't remain secret for long. A newsflash will be sent to the Press Association and will spread like wildfire across the world. Media outlets are all prepared with somber statements, black clothing, and biographies at the ready. BBC Radio and TV will play only somber music and no comedies until after the funeral. A black-edged notice will be pinned to the gates of Buckingham Palace, and the palace website will show the same text on a dark background. Across the country, flags will come down and bells will toll. Sporting matches will be cancelled. The London Stock Exchange will close, as will many businesses. Contingencies are in place for the Queen's death at any number of locations, including overseas, though that is unlikely as the elderly Queen has not left the UK since 2015. She will probably go at one of the homes she still frequents: Windsor, Sandringham, or Balmoral Castle. The royal undertakers, Levertson and Sons, will transport her coffin, made from oak grown on the Sandringham estate, to the location of her body. If the Queen dies at Balmoral in Scotland, then a wave of Scottish funeral rituals will be triggered. In every scenario, the Queen's body will be returned to the throne room of Buckingham Palace. Charles is scheduled to make the first address as head of state on the evening of or day after his mother's death. The following day, the Ascension Council, which has its roots in Anglo-Saxon times, will meet in St. James Palace. Charles will swear a solemn oath to the council. Trumpeters decked out in livery will blast, and the Garter King of Arms will announce the new monarch by the regnal name he has chosen. We'll get to that in a bit. A 41-gun salute will be fired from Hyde Park. The new king will leave St. James Palace and go on a tour of the UK, visiting Edinburgh, Belfast, and Cardiff to meet political leaders. Westminster Hall will be locked, cleaned, carpeted, and filled with thousands of candles. 4 days after her death, the Queen's coffin will be moved there in a military procession. The Queen will lie in state for 4 days, with the orb, scepter, and imperial crown upon her coffin. The public will be allowed entry 23 hours a day to pay their respects. 300,000 people came to see her father, and the line was 4 miles long. For Elizabeth, 500,000 are expected. In 1936, George V's 4 sons revived the ancient tradition of the Vigil of the Princes, in which members of the royal family stand watch over the coffin. This ritual was repeated for the Queen Mother in 2002. The Queen's children and grandchildren, including women for the first time, are expected to do the same. Before dawn on the 9th day, the doors will be locked and the crown jewels cleaned. At 9 a.m. on the 12th day, Big Ben will strike, its hammer covered in leather so that the ring will be muffled. Banks and businesses will again close for the day. The Queen's coffin will travel the short distance from Westminster Hall to the Abbey, arriving at 11 a.m. 2,000 guests, including heads of state and foreign royals, will sit inside while the funeral is broadcast worldwide. Next, the coffin will be placed on the same green gun carriage used for her father's coffin. It will be pulled by 138 junior sailors to Hyde Park Corner. From there, a hearse will take the Queen to Windsor Castle. News cameras will not be permitted to film her being laid to rest inside St. George's Chapel, next to her husband, Prince Philip, and near her father and mother. Her son, the new king, will drop a handful of earth from a silver bowl onto his mother's coffin. About a year after the Queen dies, the new king will have a coronation. The waiting period is a sign of respect for Queen Elizabeth and allows time for elaborate preparations. The date of a coronation does not affect the beginning of a monarch's reign, but is a chance for the nation to celebrate. Elizabeth was crowned 16 months after her father's death, in June, to allow for better weather. The coronation ceremony has remained largely unchanged for the past 1,000 years. It will take place at Westminster Abbey and be conducted by the Archbishop of Canterbury. The sovereign is first presented to, then acclaimed by his people. He swears an oath to uphold the law and the church. The monarch is anointed with holy oil, crowned and invested with the regalia, being the scepter, the orb, the ring, and other symbols of the reign. Finally, he receives homage from his subjects. Queen Elizabeth's 1953 coronation sparked many Britons to buy their first TV. Elizabeth was 27, and she inspired great feelings of optimism for the future. In contrast, Charles is now in his 70s and is seen as out of touch. When the monarch is a king, his wife, the queen consort, is traditionally crowned by his side. But as Camilla is even less popular than her husband, it remains to be seen if she will be crowned at the coronation. New coins and banknotes will show Charles's face rather than Elizabeth's, though the old ones will remain in circulation. Everything from post boxes to police badges that currently display the cipher E2R, meaning Elizabeth II Regina, will slowly be changed out for new ones. And the British national anthem will no longer be God Save the Queen, but God Save the King. Following Charles's ascension, his eldest son, Prince William, will be created Prince of Wales. This has been the traditional title of the heir apparent since Edward I conquered Wales and granted the title to his own son in 1301. William's wife, Catherine, will likely use the title Princess of Wales, last used by Princess Diana. There will probably be an investiture ceremony for the new Prince of Wales, like a coronation but on a smaller scale, at Caernarfon Castle. Why does Charles have to be the next king? In 1995, in the midst of their separation, Princess Diana gave an explosive TV interview, saying in so many words that her husband would make a poor king, and that the crown would be better off on the head of their son, Prince William. Since then, there have been countless calls for the throne to skip over Charles and be granted directly to William. Charles's infidelity with Camilla and poor treatment of Diana have left his character irreparably damaged, and he is seen as an out-of-touch bore who can't help but meddle in politics, something the monarch is constitutionally barred from doing. While Elizabeth is widely popular and seen as keeping the monarchy and the Commonwealth together, many are dreading seeing Charles on the throne. There's no denying that William would be a more popular king. He inherited a great deal of the compassion and charm which so endeared his mother to the public, not to mention the better looks. He and his wife Catherine are seen as far more in touch, and their glamour and charm gain them a lot of admiration. But the monarchy is not a popularity contest, and both tradition and law would never allow Charles to be denied the throne. Kings used to insist that they ruled by divine right, but today they base their reigns on the strength of tradition. Undermining that tradition by throwing out the succession rules in favor of a more popular royal would undermine the very monarchy itself. So when the Ascension Council steps out onto the balcony of St. James's Palace, it is almost unthinkable that they would declare anyone but Charles the new king. How is the next monarch decided? The 1707 Succession to the Crown Act cemented into law the long tradition of using primogeniture to determine who the next monarch is. This means the monarch's eldest child is first in line. Prior to 2013, sons were given preference over daughters. But now the succession is determined by absolute primogeniture, which gives women born after 2011 equal standing to their brothers. Next, the succession goes to the eldest child's eldest child. If the descendant has no children, it will go next to their siblings in birth order. If Charles dies before the Queen, the crown will go directly to Prince William. Whenever someone in the line of succession dies, everyone behind them simply moves up one place. When a royal baby is born, everyone behind them moves back one place. The people in front of that person are never affected. Here's how the rules of primogeniture play out to create the current order of succession. After Queen Elizabeth, the first in line to the throne is her eldest son, Charles, then his eldest son, William. Next is his son, George. If all goes as planned, George's eldest child will someday be monarch. As George is still a child himself, the next in line after him is his sister Charlotte, then his brother Louis. If William has any future legitimate children, they will follow Louis. But for now, the succession next moves up one generation to William's younger brother, Harry, and his children, Archie and Lilibet. After them, we move back up another generation to Charles's siblings. The next eldest is Princess Anne, but as the Succession to the Crown Act is not retroactive, she and her descendants remain at the back of the line behind her younger brothers and their descendants. Ninth is Prince Andrew, followed by his daughter Princess Beatrice and her daughter Sienna, then Princess Eugenie and her son August. 14th is Prince Edward, followed by his children James and Louise. Louise is older, but as both were born before 2011, their order remains subject to male preference primogeniture. 17th in the succession is Princess Anne, followed by her son Peter Phillips and his two daughters Savannah and Isla. Then Anne's daughter, Zara Tyndall, and her children, Mia, Lena, and baby Lucas, is 24th. This rounds out the Queen's descendants. After them, the succession goes up yet another generation, to the descendants of her sister, Margaret, and so on. So now that we know we're stuck with Charles, what will we be calling him? Monarchs have the right to choose their own regnal name. Queen Elizabeth's father's first name was Albert, but he chose to be styled George VI to emphasize continuity with his father. The name Charles comes with some unfortunate historic connotations. Charles I, king from 1625, ran afoul of the people by raising illegal taxes. Parliament rose up against him in the English Civil War. The king was captured, put on trial, and beheaded in 1649. The English decided that they didn't care for being a republic, so they invited the dead king's son, Charles II, to restore the monarchy. He was known as the Merry Monarch and had dozens of mistresses. If Prince Charles decides to rule with his given name, he would be King Charles III. But there was another man who claimed the same name. In 1688, King James II was kicked off the throne for his Catholic faith. His grandson, Bonnie Prince Charlie, raised troops in Scotland in an attempt to regain the throne. His Jacobite supporters called him King Charles III. But his army was wiped out at the Battle of Culloden, and he spent the rest of his life grieving his lost throne. With so many negative associations with the name King Charles, you have to wonder why Elizabeth gave that moniker to her eldest son in the first place. Sources close to Prince Charles Philip Arthur George say he is considering reigning as King George VII. When Queen Anne died without an heir in 1707, the throne went to her next living Protestant relative, George I, the Prince Elector of Hanover in modern-day Germany. His son, George II, was the last British monarch born on foreign soil. His grandson, George III, was king for 60 years during the American and French Revolutions and the Napoleonic Wars. He suffered from mental illness, and his son, the future George IV, ruled as Prince Regent before officially sitting the throne from 1820 to 1830. His great-grandnephew, George V, was king during World War I and changed the name of the royal dynasty from the German Saxe-Coburg and Gotha to the English Windsor. His son, King George VI, was an incredibly popular monarch during World War II. He died in 1952, passing the throne to his daughter, the current Queen Elizabeth II. It seems likely that Charles would take the opportunity to rebrand himself and be associated with his popular war hero grandfather, George VI, rather than the infamous, headless, philandering, or pretending Charleses. As Prince William is already very popular, and as his given name is not associated with anyone too terrible, he will likely reign as King William V, the previous being the illustrious William I, aka William the Conqueror, the Norman Duke who took over England in 1066. Next was his son, William II, whose younger brother, Henry, invited him for a hunting trip, shot him full of arrows, and stole his throne. William III was also the Prince of Orange and ruler of the modern-day Netherlands. He became King of England in 1689